In her book, Good Ideas and Power Moves, 10 Lessons for Success from Taylor Swift, author Sinéad O'Sullivan unpacks the pop star's business genius with thoughts on leadership, long-term thinking, and emotional intelligence. O'Sullivan is a Harvard MBA graduate, also former head of their Institute for Strategy. She joins us now. Thanks a lot for being here. So talk to me about Taylor Swift's decision, to buy back her albums and what that tells you in terms of general business sense and the importance of long-term thinking, and of course the all-important virtue of strategic patience in the business world, Sinead.
Right, absolutely. I mean, there's so much that we could learn from her decision to kind of buy back her albums. I think the big one, though, in the kind of wider world of business is that private equity has come from literally every industry on the planet. And when it came for Taylor's industry, the music industry, and quite literally her voice and her records, she turned around and said, no, not today, it's not going to happen. And she did the very thing the industry told her was either impossible to do or kind of downright dumb, which is to re-record her albums. And in doing so, she turned what would have been a massive loss for any other recording artist into this incredible act of creative sovereignty. Probably the best decision that we've seen in modern business, and particularly within the entertainment industry. And she didn't just reclaim her intellectual property by buying back her albums, which of course she gained, but she kind of created this very smart secondary revenue stream, and most importantly, she reactivated her fan base over the space of several years as she kind of re-recorded and released her previous albums. And in doing so, she rewrote the rules of leverage for pretty much every artist that's going to come after her.
Can you help us better understand what private equity and that landscape had done to the music industry at that point?
Yeah, I mean, there's this kind of complex evolution of both private equity eating up, the entertainment industry and kind of trying to buy a lot of the various artists and their IP. At the same time, that created this kind of top-down pressure, and then there was this bottom-up pressure created by the kind of, this is going back a few years now, but the invention of Spotify and, moving into the digital age. And so most artists felt the squeeze in both places simultaneously. Taylor Swift, however, kind of said, well, I'm going to do the one thing that I know that I uniquely own that nobody else owns, and that's really making the most of her core fan base through the emotional connection that she had with them that private equity was not able to buy from her. And private equity bought the IP, but that is by far not her most kind of valuable asset. Her asset is really her fan base. And I think private equity learned pretty quickly when they had bought her IP that they were not just able to transfer the hundreds of millions of fans over with her or with those assets. And so that left a gaping hole in the portfolio of the multiple private equity owners that kind of went through her music ownership.
Sinead, talk to me about the other ways with which you've seen Taylor Swift most inventively build and maintain her overall brand empire.
I think what Taylor Swift has done that very few corporations, companies, artists have done in nearly any other industry is that she creates worlds, not products. And so even thinking about the music industry, Taylor, has created eras, not single albums. And within each era is this kind of fully constructed universe, complete with its own symbols, language, and importantly, the story arc. And this kind of has done three things for her business. The first is that it created this very deep emotional ownership. So when fans enter a world, instead of kind of buying a product, they become very emotionally invested. They feel very, very deeply connected to it. And this, emotional resonance creates brand loyalty that's nearly immune to competition. And, this is why Taylor's market share has just been so sticky. Fans have moved into her world. We hear that all the time, but you rarely hear about fans leaving her world. The other thing that this has done is create massive, massive repeated engagement. So, a product is kind of this one and done action that, or engagement with the user or a fan. A world, on the other hand, kind of invites us revisiting and reinterpreting and re-engaging. And, fans, particularly for Taylor Swift, spend a lot of time decoding Easter eggs, these clues that she kind of scatters about her life and her music. And they create and share their own theories about her life and her music. And they re-listen and they relive albums, not just at the time of release, but long after that. And this massively extends the product life, the this massively extends the product lifetime value and kind of drives continual engagement with those products without needing to, kind of constantly create new content. And then the most amazing thing about what she's done is that, when you build a world instead of a product, you don't have to do all of the storytelling yourself. So the fans, and this is particularly what is very interesting about what she's done, the fans have helped to shape it, and they themselves have filled in the gaps and importantly designed their own lore surrounding her music and her storytelling. And this has really lowered the content burden on the creator, which in this case is Taylor, while really increasing the richness and the kind of tapestry of the narrative that's involved in the world. So I think moving from individual products to world building has created this kind of incredible brand universe for her that very few other global brands, even the most iconic ones, have been able to replicate or even to do since then.
Has there been an evolution to the way that you've seen Taylor Swift approach her business model and overall career and negotiations over the course of her career?
I think, what's really interesting about Taylor Swift is that she has kind of taken the traditional business strategy frameworks that we would teach at the big business schools, and she's thrown them out the window now. I suspect this is largely because she was never a student of these business schools, which nearly makes it easier for her to do that. But certainly everything that we've seen her do and how she negotiates and how she drives her business is kind of the opposite of what a McKinsey partner would tell you to do, which is part of her magic. She does it very authentic. She does it very authentically, and this is partly because nobody knows her fans and the world that she has created better than she does. I think at the beginning of her career, she was obviously a lot younger, but we still kind of saw her take creative control and strategic control of the direction that she wanted to move in. And over time, she became far more confident in being able to make decisions about her business and her strategy and her kind of creative direction. That even the most, the best strategists and the best CEOs would probably need an army of McKinsey consultants to help them do. So she's acted in a very kind of authentic way, but she's also kind of rewritten the rules and kind of discarded the frameworks that other CEOs might have used, and it's really benefited her.
Finally, what is one business lesson you think we could all learn from Taylor Swift?
Well, there are lots. I think what I'm really thinking about at the minute for my own business and through the work that I'm doing is this long-term goal-oriented strategy that she has. And nearly everything in the world that we experience today is very short-term focused, and whether it's creating content or even thinking strategically quarter to quarter, or in the public markets day to day. I think you look at Taylor Swift and she's never reactive to anything, although she does react. And I think this long-term thinking and her ability to kind of in my book I call it "Don't eat the marshmallow." She's extraordinary at kind of looking at something and saying, okay, I'm going to leave that for a while. And she has taken many kind of short-term losses to build this extraordinarily long-term goal. And I think what we saw through her Eras tour was that long-term patience and resilience starting to really show its true value.
Don't eat the marshmallow. I love that. Thanks a lot for being here. It's great to have your perspective. The book is Good Ideas and Power Moves, 10 Lessons for Success from Taylor Swift. The author, Sinéad O'Sullivan. She's our guest. Sinead, thanks for making this work.
Thanks for having me.